Are you part of a watershed? I think the easiest way to answer that question is to look at a map. This is a Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, map of Texas. And say you live in Dallas, Texas, and you want to know if you're part of a watershed. Well, one of the ways to do that is to add a layer. So this is the Texas River Basins. If I add that layer to the map, you can see that this symbolizes all of the Texas River Basins. So here would be the Rio Grande River Basin, which runs outside of the limits of Texas. Here's the Brazos River Basin, which really goes from one end of Texas to the other. And then here's the Trinity River Basin, which is where Dallas and Houston are both located. So as a citizen of Dallas, you would be part of the Trinity River watershed. A basin is just another word for the entire river, as far as a watershed is concerned. So what is a watershed? A watershed is another word for catchment. And a catchment is essentially all of the water that flows within a designated zone. And all of the water in here will be flowing into the Trinity as its major tributary to head down into the Gulf. So all of the rivers head down into the Gulf. The catchment is going to be all of the water that flows to that major river to head then down to the Gulf. So every single one of them is continuous. They're connected to each other. So there's no part of this that is not part of the watershed. But if you want to look a little bit more closely, you can add something called HUCs. So these are hydrologic unit codes. And this is a HUC 8. So it's just a designation of size. And if I add the HUC 8s in, you can see that these are sub-basins. So they're smaller than the overall river basin. And it's going to take, here's our Brazos, here's our Trinity. This entire Trinity River Basin is now broken up into multiple sub-basins. It can help us categorize watersheds by making them smaller. You can even go smaller. You can do HUC 10s, and you can even do HUC 12s. And if you look at how small a HUC 12 looks on this map, when you zoom in, you could actually see that these are about the size of a whole city. So even though they're the smallest of the watershed catchments, they're still pretty large. So to answer the question of whether you're part of a watershed, yes, we are all part of a watershed.
Lights, camera, action.
As you might be well aware, different parts of the country are experiencing drought. Here's a backyard creek that's usually flowing and thriving, honey, but the hot temperatures and a little rainfall we've been getting have caused this creek to become still and it's drying out. You wouldn't want to play in this or stick your hands in it because the water is getting pretty low and it's still, and different parts of this creek get hit by the sun, which can make the water get warm, and that actually makes it the best breeding ground for bugs like bacteria and parasites to flourish. So check out your local waterways to see how they're doing and let us know what you find.
Climate change increases frequency and intensity of heat events or heat waves, leading to droughts. This puts more pressure on rivers and lakes to support our growing population, leading to water stagnation. This, combined with high water temperatures, promotes pathogen growth, which can infiltrate public water systems. So should you be worried about taking that summer dip at the lake? Well, yes, mostly for one particular pathogen, Naegleria fowleri, aka brain-eating amoebas. These guys gain access to the brain when infested water splashes into your nose. So if you're taking that summer dip, remember to protect your nose by keeping your head above the surface and covering your nose around splashing.
Did you know that drought can impact more than just the surface water that you see? It can also impact groundwater, which is water that's stored underground in soil. So the water table, not that either. The water table is the underground boundary where saturated soil meets unsaturated soil. So below the water table, all of that soil, all of the little pores between the rocks and the sand and the sediment are filled with water. The unsaturated zone above that is going to be where air is also trapped in those between those pores, along with a lot of the plant roots where they're going to be drawing up a lot of the water. So in a time of drought, or even just in summer months, water is going to be taken up more quickly by those plants and won't even reach the water table below. And people are going to be taking up more water. probably from wells and maybe from drawing from other water bodies. And this is going to also lower that water table. So when the water table is lowered, that stored water is no longer accessible to plants or to those wells. So the water table lowering means that we won't have as much water, and neither will the plants. So be aware that water is not just what you can see, but also the water that we are all drawing from underground.